Welcome to the Practice You podcast. My name is Elena Brower. Together, we'll explore and enjoy content and conversations around mastering transitions in our relations, our wellness, our careers, our families, and especially in our missions and visions. You are invited to learn and love and listen with me. Welcome to Practice You. Welcome back to the podcast. I have an old friend, a friend in yoga, a friend in the healing arts, a friend in the astrological space, which my listener, you know, is a very rare thing for me. But here we are. Jill Wintersteen, the founder of Spirit Daughter, is here with us today. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Many, many years ago, I think we're going back, 12 or 13 years, we met for the second time in Los Angeles. Is that true?
I think so. Yes.
Yes. And I was actually seeing you for body work, and we had one of those sessions where both of us walked away with a great deal of benefit, care, ideas, inspiration. So thank you again for that. You have gone on to create Spirit Daughter. This is your sort of work baby, as it were. This is a very popular astrology and wellness brand. What I think makes it so delicious is that you're very down to earth about it. You're not trying to be something you're not. You are giving from your studies and your extensive work in this space for over a decade what you know on a regular basis about how the world is turning, literally and figuratively. You've studied psychology, you've studied Chinese medicine. You're actually an academic researcher with a master's degree in psychology. You're insane. I love seeing what you're creating for folks, the toolkits that you're generating for people so that they can have inspiration to move through their lives with a little more understanding. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about how you created all this today.
Thanks. Thank you for that intro. I'm excited too.
Talk to me about how it all started, because when you and I were seeing each other those many years ago, I think it was actually during Hurricane Sandy, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, something like that. It was somewhere around that time.
You're right. Yeah. Yep.
And I remember that you were sort of like really earnestly seeking what to do.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I was searching all of my 20s for what to do. I started studying astrology in my teens, and then I went into psychology and research and academia and that life. And I realized early on that wasn't for me. And then I'm like, well, what is for me? What should I do with my life? And that landed me in LA, in Santa Monica in particular. And I had the opportunity to study with some fantastic people, including you. Yoga, this was like the mecca of yoga back then. So I was studying with some of the great yoga teachers.
Who were your teachers back then? Were you like Saul, Sean, Shiva?
I loved Eric Schiffman. Eric Schiffman was like my guy. And
were we in that training together when I took Eric's training with Vinnie Marino back in the day?
No, I wasn't in that one. I think I've heard of this one though. I think I've heard this story.
It was one for the records. Eric was in rare form. Vinnie had not yet started teaching. And he was Vinnie was like freaking out that he was never going to make it as a teacher. And I was like, no, you're going to be perfect. Don't worry.
Yeah. Totally perfect. But yeah, I actually started, Eric Schiffman was the first yoga I ever did on VHS when I was like 16 years old back in Pennsylvania.
With whom?
With Allie McGraw.
I knew you were going to say Allie McGraw, of course. She lives near me now. I see her every now and again walking around here, and I always just sort of nod my head kind of
Right.
respectfully, deferently. What a woman.
Yeah.
What a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. So, to get the chance to study, years later with Eric in the flesh, not on VHS, was amazing. And then, I was big into Ashtanga, and I studied with Anna Forrest for years.
Of course.
And, Jill Miller, yoga tune up, and
She's the best. Jill Miller. I got to get her on this podcast, actually. I don't know. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. She's phenomenal. I mean, talk about a brain, just the way her brain works.
Big brain.
Yeah.
Check out the big brain on Jill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's just a really great time to study. And then I did a lot of body work with Ellen Heed, who is just fantastic in the body work space and absolutely amazing, and understands the body from a perspective like Jill understands it. Jill actually did study with Ellen as well, but in a different way. But just this like thorough, complete understanding of the body, like they have X-ray vision and can just see how everything's moving, what it's doing, and energetically and physically, and all the things. But yeah, so I really feel that Spirit Daughter was born out of this culmination of this decade of searching and studying and figuring out who I was and healing. I went through a very traumatic divorce around that time as well. I was married early on. And so I still this day, I tell people not to get married before their Saturn return. And so I was on a healing journey as well. So I'm searching what to do for my life, healing myself and my wounds, even healing, going far back, healing childhood wounds. I was just on this journey. And it extended, I met you and you became part of it. Meeting you was definitely pivotal for me as well. I remember having some coaching sessions with you, right before, probably, within months before I had the concept for Spirit Daughter. And they were just so transformative. I remember talking to you at like 5 a.m. one morning, and I think it was 8 where you were.
Oh my God, I'm just now remembering.
Do you remember that?
Oh my God. You know what? I had put out of my mind entirely those few phone sessions, but they similar to when I received the body work, even though I was also talking to you about your stuff, I also learned a lot through what we discussed. I'm just remembering now that it inspired me a lot to do better, do more.
Yeah. Yeah. And it inspired me also, to do better, to do more, and just get clear on what I wanted, and how to really put it out into the world, what it was that I wanted, and how to really frame what I wanted to call into my life, and when. And so I become very clear about my future and who I wanted in it and what I wanted it to be, and really designing my life. And, from that process, I was able to get really clear, and Spirit Daughter was born. And I don't know if she would have been born without your input. And I don't know if I've ever told you that, but without those sessions that were just so, they were crucial. When I look back on my evolution and my journeys, and they were crucial for me. They were absolutely needed and necessary for my journey. So thank you.
Oh my God. That's like the most lovely feeling in my body right now. Thank you for sharing that. There's, for our listener, in case you don't know this, and you want to distract yourself for a hot second, go to Instagram and type in Spirit Daughter into the search field in case you haven't seen it, which I'm sure you have. Jill has almost 2 million followers on that page. And, I know that followers don't really mean anything. I know. But the message is salient and universal enough that it has reached naturally all those folks. And I really appreciate what you ended up creating. I think you had to get out of your sort of small mind and move into Okay, what's the biggest thought I could possibly have? And I think that might be relevant for one of our, fair listeners as we go through this. It's just incredible what you've created.
Absolutely. And yeah, it just, it was, I feel like Spirit Daughter is just this culmination of everything I've done in my life. Starting from a toddler, like it's just,
That's how it is. When you get to a certain age, it really is like that. Like, oh, I remember being 4 and loving this, and here we are. I'm 50.
Right, right. So it's pretty amazing, and I'm so grateful every day for the journey and the growth. And it has been a journey within Spirit Daughter, and it's definitely changed me as a person. And I've had to really dig deep and keep evolving and keep growing myself and keep doing my practices. And because I feel like it's easy, and I think other people who have businesses can relate, when you're giving so much to the world and giving these practices to the world and these rituals and all of this work, it's very easy. It was very easy for me to forget to do the work myself and just get caught up in giving, giving, giving. And I think you and I actually had talked about that a little bit later on. And so, this last year in particular, I've been working with, an executive coach, and I've sort of gotten back into like, okay, I need to evolve in order to keep growing and keep offering things and keep helping people and keep staying true to my mission and who I am and what I want to do in this world. I need to evolve too. Because I think for a point it was kind of like, wow, I did all this work. I'm not creating this thing. I'm putting it out into the world. I'm just going to focus on output. And so the last year has been like, okay, well, how do I be a better founder? What does that even mean? How do I really grow a team? How do I, what do people really want next from me? What should we be? We have a huge platform. What should we be using it for? How can we keep putting good out in the world, and when the world really needs it? And what do people really need at this point? And for me to like really answer those questions, and we're at the 5-year mark with Spirit Daughter. So that's when I think a lot of businesses start to evolve and shift and change. But in order for the business to evolve and shift and change, I have to too.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I like looking into the eye of the storm and thinking about what would be best, like what would benefit the most from me next, And sometimes I get the strangest answers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's fascinating. You've created a series of astrologically inclined oriented videos of flows, yoga flows. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What I like about this is that your people, your community can now actually take, just as you said, all of the studies that you've ever done and really take advantage of everything in one place. Can you talk a little bit about this particular offering?
Yeah. So those actually came to me almost 2 years ago. It was one of those things like, okay, what should I offer next? And, they came up during a new moon ceremony I was doing, and it took me a year and a half to really get comfortable with putting them out into the world. We recorded them within like 2 months of the idea popping up. And, there's always been yoga in the workbooks. So each of the workbooks does hold a yoga sequence, but there's something different about doing a yoga video, obviously, than reading it in a workbook. And so I knew it was something that our current community would benefit from. And I've always loved the idea of astrological yoga, just because, I do have such a strong background in yoga. And I practiced for years, and I still practice to this day. But each of the signs governs an area of the body. And so it's a natural fit for yoga. And, when we go through the sequences, especially, when we're looking at different vinyasa and hatha sequences, like, oh, they're all designed around certain areas of the body. And, so it's, for me, it's like a natural pairing to fit yoga with astrology, just because, we're dealing with, okay, the moon's in Leo. Leo rules the heart. Let's do heart opening series. It's just, it felt like common sense to me. Like, okay, we want to align with the energy of Leo. Let's work up to camel pose. And so, it definitely felt like something I wanted to put out into the world. I recorded them. We had to reshoot a couple. I actually reshot 3 of them at 7 weeks pregnant because I was like, now or never. Now or never.
7 weeks or 7 months?
7 weeks. I'm 7 months now. So we've actually reshot the 3. I was 7 weeks. It was like a year later. We originally shot them. It was October of 2020. We had like a window in the pandemic. And so we shot them and then we had to reshoot them. And we, ended up reshooting them like this past November, 2021. But it was such a journey to kind of get them together, and shooting them was easy. Putting them out into the world, even though I knew I needed to, was harder. Just because there's like definitely like an ego thing that came up. Like, do I really want to be, because it's me, and I've gotten very used to writing and hiding. I do stories, but I've gotten very used to kind of hiding behind the scenes.
Yeah, I noticed that at the beginning. It was a lot of like, as valuable as all the information was, it was mostly drawings, and now you're more kind of in the spotlight a little bit, which I really appreciate. People get to see how actually very natural and normal and chill and personable, lovely you are.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's a challenge for me. It's a challenge for me to step in front of the spot, even though I am a Leo. It's definitely a challenge for me to step into the spotlight, and the yoga videos really challenged that. So that was part of my work. I had to really do work on myself just to put them out into the world. Because it's me on screen doing yoga, and, I've had 1 kid already, and, I was 7 weeks pregnant in some of the videos, and, I'm not 25 anymore, fit and trim. Like most of the stuff I do, it's a very real and authentic representation of who I am, right now. So, I'm not, like I said, I'm not 25, I'm not 30. And, just putting them out there was difficult for me, but I'm really happy they're out there. And, I think people are getting really great value out of them, and, understanding them. And, they're complementary to the workbooks. They, give people a visual, and it's just something different. And I think when they're done in a certain way, which I intended them to be like in correlation with the moon phase. So, if the moon's in Aries, one would do the Aries yoga video. If the moon's in Taurus, somebody would do, that day they do the Taurus yoga video. I think it really can help just align the energetic body with the cosmos and what's going on there, and just helping you get into that vibration a little bit deeper.
There are 2 things I want to address from what you just spoke about. The first is, thank God we're not 25 anymore.
Right.
And I'm really committed to helping my fellow colleagues and women feel super proud of however their body looks at whatever their age. There is no going back. You wouldn't go back if you were paid to go back and experience all of that pain again. So I think we need to just let go of that whole conversation and celebrate the fact that you were 7 weeks pregnant and you rocked it. And guess what? Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Like, no one actually cares. I promise you. We're all just excited to have your practices. The second part is the moon workbooks. Now, I'm just wrapping my head around the fact that your practices are really about when the moon is in a specific astrological sign, not just what phase of the moon we're at. And this is it's a layer of complexity that I hadn't considered before I started to see what you were putting out there. Talk to us about the workbooks and how they dovetail with the yoga practices.
Well, the workbooks they're primarily practices for the new moon and the full moon. And the new moon always corresponds with the current season, right? So the moon is always in a sign, just like the sun is always in a sign. So right now the sun is in Taurus, and we will have a new moon in Taurus, and we will have a full moon in Scorpio. So full and new moons always take place in a zodiac sign. And so the workbooks are really about that. So it's not just that we're doing a new moon practice this month that's like last month. It's that this month we're doing a new moon practice with the energy of Taurus. So we're going to look at the energy of Taurus. What is that? What does that mean to us? How does that affect us? How can we harness that power of Taurus and the themes, right? Because every zodiac sign has themes, the themes that fall under Taurus, to write intentions, to manifest our visions, to create our visions, to deal with our blocks, to understand our subconscious patterns. And so each month, we pretty much have a blueprint given to us by the sign of the moon. And the moon travels through different zodiac signs every 2.5 days. So, the new moon will start in Taurus, and then 2 days later, it will move to Gemini, and then it will move to Cancer, and then it will move to Leo. And so within the course of a month, it moves through the entire 12 zodiac signs. And with it, it brings different energy each day. And so, the workbooks, they focused, on that period that, we have the new moon in Taurus, for instance. This is when you would do your Taurus yoga flow, because we're aligning with the energy of Taurus. And you don't have to be a Taurus. You can be a Libra, you can be a Sagittarius. You still can harness and work with the energy of Taurus no matter who you are, which is one of the things that I really wanted to do with the work of Spirit Daughter, was make it be about the collective and how we will all experience a new moon, which happens to be a solar eclipse in Taurus. And that affects everybody in the world, and we'll all be affected by that energy, and we can all harness that energy and understand it to help understand ourselves and what we really want to get clear about our life. And when you go through all 12 signs and you work with the workbooks for a year, you end up touching on sort of every aspect of your personality and everything that could come up. So, working with Taurus, with that example, we're working with, self-worth, abundance. How do you create inner peace to find your creativity? These are all things that, whether you're a Taurus or not, are in your world. And so when, it's Taurus season, the sun's in Taurus, and then we have the new moon, it's the time to work on those things in your life.
You know what I love about this? There isn't another offering like this out there. And it's why I wanted to have you on. There isn't a way for a person who practices yoga to find a comprehensive, well-guided, well-thought out, well-wrought series of practices that are aligned with the moon in this way. And I really appreciate the creativity, and I know how much work went into this.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And, it's fun. I love doing it. It is work, but it's fun. So I always try and remember that. And it is, the workbooks are meant to be, I started doing new moon circles years ago. And they had yoga, they had meditation, they had yoga. We sat and we wrote intentions with the guidance of the astrology of the day of that new moon. And the workbooks really were intended to capture that and put it out in a way that anybody could access it. So you didn't have to be in LA and have access to me in order to do this practice. You could be halfway around the world and you could get a workbook and you could do these practices. And the yoga videos have that same intention. You don't have to, I don't have classes, but you don't have to go to Jill's astrological yoga class in LA. You can do it anywhere in the world.
I want to thank you, and I want to ask you these little questions that I ask sometimes my guests. I used to do it more when we first started recording, but I would love to know from you, what is your favorite view? And it can be like a physical place, it can be a thought that you have, it can be mine when I answered it for myself was the back of my son's neck.
Mm,
You
mhm,
know,
mhm.
Diego, young Pueblo said, inside of his mind in the middle of meditation. So there, you can really go anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I would say my favorite view is my son playing on the beach at the water's edge
Mm.
of this specific lagoon in Hawaii. And we were just there last week. and I had visited this lagoon, just a little bit of backstory here, for many years in my life before I had children. And I always thought it would be the perfect place for a toddler to play because, the Pacific Ocean where I am is not the best place for a kid to play at the water's edge because the waves are so rough. But this lagoon was perfect. And for some reason, which I could go into, but I won't. At the start of the pandemic, all I wanted to do was to see my son on this lagoon in Hawaii, and sort of became this thing, this aspiration or this vision or just something that could kind of hold me together in some of the harder times. And we went there last 2 weeks ago, and it was exactly how I always imagined it to be. And it was perfect. So it's become my favorite view.
Wow, beautiful. There are a couple of other questions, and maybe someday we can meet on the beach in Hawaii. The first is, what does prayer mean to you?
Prayer, I think, to me means intention. Prayer to me is putting out an intention or a vision out into the world that you don't hope will happen, but know will happen. Like prayer feels it feels more grounded than a wish. Or it's a wish carries that sort of hopeful, it might happen. I hope it does. Where prayer feels more grounded and with more wisdom behind it. Like, I know this is going to happen. I'm going to put it out into the world, and so it will be.
Yeah, beautiful. And the third question is sort of more general, but what in your estimation needs healing right now? This can be something personally for you, or this can be something sort of more global, universal.
I think, on a more global level, my theme for 2022, as I've been writing the workbooks, has been healing. And I think on a global collective, we need some massive healing from the trauma that has been endured over the last 2 years of the pandemic. And so I think that there is a healing that needs to be occurred, and a certain amount of trust that needs to come back to the world. Like, we need to trust life again in some ways.
I am so thankful for our ongoing connection. As I implored our listener to follow you on Instagram at Spirit Daughter, I went to Spirit Daughter and realized I wasn't actually following you. So now I am.
Funny.
I just check all the time, so I didn't even notice. The most recent few posts, really, I love. I would love to know, first of all, do you have an artist, or are you the artist?
I have an artist. That's one thing I'm not talented in. I always say when I retire, I will learn how to draw and paint, but not yet.
This person's doing a great job.
She does an amazing job. Becca writes. She's been with me since day one. She did the cover of the very first workbook. She's been with my company for 5 years now, and I love her. And we just have this relationship where I have a thought, and sometimes I don't even speak it, and she draws it. it's, it's remarkable, the work we do together. There's a magic there.
Yep. I know what that's like. I have something like that with my collaborators, so I get it. But I do want to say your post from April 26th, let things fucking end. The moon landed in Pisces, and that was your vibe. And it's a mood, like it's a whole mood. I'm feeling it loud and clear. I can't thank you enough for that affirmation. And I see that 38,000 other people are thanking you for that affirmation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tremendous. Tremendous. I have a lot of admiration for the folks who can tap into something that is most personal to you and verbalize it, articulate it, express it here, especially here, in such a way that it is personal for thousands of humans. I have a particular space in my heart for a particular respect for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I want to tell our listener where to find you. The first I'll say is spiritdaughter.com, spelled out one word. If you look under collections, you're going to find the workbook. You're going to find Zodiac Yoga. Is there any other place aside from Instagram that people should look for your work, Jill?
Instagram, the website. That's about it. We're not, big TikTokers yet. So
I'm still not sure about TikTok. I'm still not sure. Yeah, I just can't. My kid put me on it a couple of years ago, and he made me do a few dances and so forth. And I was just like, I just am not sure that this is relevant for me, but I like it for other people. So
Right.
I'm going to leave it over there.
Yeah.
Could be generational. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your beautiful, beautiful work, Jill. I'm so proud of watching this happen. And thank you for letting me in.
Yep. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being in my life.
Yes. Talk soon.